Thanks, folks. All right, there we go. You got to see me talking for a while. Welcome. Did you hear anything? No one's heard anything. Okay, we'll start again. Hello, and welcome to Ramblestream episode number 56. I'm very excited this evening to be joined by Janus customer Chris, and a compatriot from a recent long ramble, cross-country ramble on small motorized vehicles. So I thought it would be very fitting to have them on the Ramblestream to tell us a little bit about their adventures and share how you can do the same, and maybe some tips from along the journey. How's the sound? We got sound? Volume's up? How are we doing? Let's look at some comments here. Okay, Sirius says we're good. All right. Okay. Real quick here, let's take a gander at some comments. Grant says, can't wait to listen to you lot monkeying around. Eric Green, hello all. Eric with Outlaw, Vancouver, Washington, drinking water. So we've got some folks in. I will just do my usual introduction. If you are old ramblers, you know the drill. If you're new to the Ramblestream, you follow Eric's lead and tell us your name or your online handle, where you're dialing in from, and what you ride, what you drive, what you ramble with. And if it happens to be a Janus, tell us your serial model and serial number. And last but not least, tell us what you're sipping on this evening. And so I will go ahead and go first. Richard Worsham here at Janus Motorcycles fabrication shop, about a mile south of our main headquarters. What else? I ride a Halcyon 250 and a Kawasaki KLR 650, among other things. And I am sipping on some Evan Williams and water. Cheers, Ramblers. All right. I'm going to go ahead and, since we have guests waiting in the wings, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we'll answer comments and questions as we roll. But first, I thought this would be a very fitting one, given, as you will maybe tell, given the company. This is from one of my favorite poets, and I thought fittingly a great nonsense poet, Lewis Carroll. "You are old, Father William," the young man said, "and your hair has become very white, and yet you incessantly stand on your head. Do you think, at your age, it is right?" "In my youth," Father William replied to his son, "I feared it might injure the brain. But now that I'm perfectly sure I have none, why, I do it again and again." "You are old," said the youth, "as I mentioned before, and have grown most uncommonly fat. Yet you turned a back somersault in at the door. Pray, what is the reason of that?" "In my youth," said the sage, as he shook his grey locks, "I kept all my limbs very supple, by the use of this ointment, 1 shilling the box. Allow me to sell you a couple?" "You are old," said the youth, "and your jaws are too weak for anything tougher than suet. Yet you finished the goose with the bones and the beak. Pray, how did you manage to do it?" "In my youth," said his father, "I took to the law, and argued each case with my wife, and the muscular strength which it gave to my jaw has lasted the rest of my life." "You are old," said the youth. "One would hardly suppose that your eye was as steady as ever, yet you balanced an eel on the end of your nose. What made you so awfully clever?" "I have answered 3 questions, and that is enough," said his father. "Don't give yourself airs. Do you think I can listen to all day to such stuff? Be off, or I'll kick you downstairs." All right. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and bring on our guests. There they are.
Good evening.
Can we hear you?
Check, test, check.
Hello.
Now I think I'm gonna have to put my earphones on so I don't get reverb. We don't get echo from me. We'll figure out the volume here. That's probably the right call. All right. Okay, guys, you're frozen. This is a good start.
Okay.
How's your internet connection?
Good on our
Very
end.
good, yeah. Anything now?
So on our end, your image is frozen. Maybe we're only going to have audio.
It may be better. I've been told I had a face for radio.
All right, let's see. If you all wanted to try, here, I'm going to take you out of the studio, and then we're going to add you back in again. There they are.
Hey.
Now they're moving. They're moving. There we go. All right. So let's go ahead and I will allow you all to do the introductions. Chris, go first and tell us a little bit about your connection with Janus.
Chris Smith. I'm a Halcyon 250 owner, number 367. That I got myself over to Goshen and bought the bike, and then rode it back to Cleveland, Ohio, on a November 5th day, about 2020. So that was an inspiring ride, and probably something I should not have done, but it got me there and got me back, and I've been a Janus owner and supporter ever since. I'm
Ambassador, this guy.
I'm kind of a regional guy. I try to talk to local folks that are interested and let them come by and ride my bike to get a feel for what it's like, and talk about the service and support you get from the folks at Janus. So I'm a big supporter, and that's who I am.
What else?
What else is in your garage?
I've got two Moto Guzzi. One's a 1400 California. The one's a 750 special, they call it. I've got a 2001 Kawasaki Vulcan Drifter, which is their Kawasaki's homage to the old Indians. Mm-hmm. I've got a 1982 Suzuki GS450, the very first bike I ever bought. I still own it. I've got a Benelli 135, TNT 135, and then I have not one but two Honda Monkeys, 125cc Honda Monkeys that were our pride and joy during our trip.
Are you all sipping on anything?
We are both enjoying a Heineken 00.
There we go. All right. Cheers.
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 All right. So we got that's Chris, and we got Pete. Tell us about your story, Pete.
I'm Pete. I've been riding for about 40 years. I'm going to say 40 years. My very first bike was a Honda Z50A Mini Trail in 1970, which was stolen from my garage. I've never recovered from it. So when Honda came out with the new Monkeys, which was an homage to those original Mini Trails in the same colors and everything, same paint motif, in 2019, I said, I got to have one. So I bought it, and I've been riding the wheels off it ever since. And this year I also added a CT 125 Hunter Cub to the stable. So I have two of the mini Hondas. And then I've been a BMW GS rider for the last 20 years too. I've had, I think, 4 GSs. I presently have a F800 GS Adventure, which was a 2017, was last year of the F800 series. And then I have a 2006 R1150 GSA, which is the bike made famous by Charlie Borman and Ewan McGregor. It was the last of the classic steel tank BMWs, and oil cooled before they went to water cooled, obviously. When I bought that one brand new, I still have that one also. So,
cool.
Big GS guy and little Honda guy.
I was gonna say you both have quite a range of riding options. That's great. That's
I guess I have just as much fun on either one too.
Oh, there's different tools for different experiences. Yeah.
Sometimes it's fun to do the wrong job with the wrong tool.
Exactly. I know a thing or two about that too. Oh, fantastic. Well, we're going to intersperse our conversation with, I want to try and get to our comments. So I'm going to just read a couple here and see, you'll kind of get the gist. We just check in with folks. We got Riggedy Alps, a customer. Good evening, fellow Janai enthusiasts. Rich with Cheyenne and Spirit. I'm trying to encourage everybody to name their rides, and yet I still haven't done it. Cheyenne and Spirit from the wilderness of Massachusetts, drinking LaCroix, sparkling water tonight. Thanks all at the Janus HQ for signing the poster. Semtex is John here, not so patiently waiting for Halcyon 250 number 1148 to get here to Rancho Cucamonga, California. Having an ice cold 7-Up as always. Eric says it is hard to wait. Racing the Sun, the Felix brothers, 450 number 120 and 121, drinking a Guinness and a Capri Sun that he stole from my kids. Charles McGagan from the Eastern Shore, Halcyon 250 number 454, Phoenix number 30, Griffin 450 number 4 for Christmas. Having a Halcyon, or a Halcyon, that H always gets me, an H2O today. Dave Bowen, good evening from Seattle, cloudy good evening from Seattle, chilling with 450 number 41 and a malty Scotch ale. Andy, double posting here, Fruit Punch Capri Sun. Tom Lathrop, Griffin 250 number 149, Halcyon 250 number 1008, 87 Yamaha Virago 535, 96 HD Dyna Lowrider, 98 Ultra Classic, and a 17 ZXR 14R. Good evening all from Burlington, Wisconsin. Sipping on iced tea. We got Gary in from East Lansing with the entire model offering of Janus motorcycles. We have a 50 number 11, 250 number 79, 450 number 3, Phoenix number 79. He also has a 72 Triumph Trident, an 80 Honda CM200, a 1990 H83, a Ural 2015 Tourist, a 2017 Gear Up, and he's sipping on Diet Dr. Pepper. Scott Spence from right up this road here with 250 number 212 and 450 number 178, sipping on Captain Morgan and Coke as usual. Joel Yanda from Kansas City, 450 number 218 and Griffin 450 number 1, which is being built right now. Joel, very exciting. Confed Yank, howdy from Central North Carolina, 100th anniversary Road King, and sipping some Pepsi. And Dan Rademski, 450 number 235 in Western North Carolina, sipping on bubbly. Rambled about 40 miles today. Leaf peeping. Awesome. Okay, well, guys, tell us a little bit about how this idea came into being.
Chris has been bugging me to do a cross-country trip on small bikes for a couple of years, and things just kind of fell into place this year. And it's kind of a, let me back up to 1984. I did this trip on a bicycle. That's the year I graduated from high school.
Okay.
So I bicycled from California to Virginia, and I've always wanted to trace that route on a small bike, so on a small motorcycle, not because I'm too old and lazy to pedal. But anyhow, so that was kind of what spawned the idea. This was the 40th anniversary of the bicycle trip. Chris had been pushing for this trip for a couple of years, or I guess we've been discussing it for a couple of years. And Chris kind of lit the fire under me. So it came together this fall. We left Cleveland here. I should say we left the West Coast on October 1st and got back to Cleveland on October the 12th. 12 days. They were big days. And we didn't follow my 1984 route to the letter, but we followed it in spirit. Back in those days, there was no GPS, so I remember I had like a AAA road map that we used to get across the country, and we just went east every day. And we said when we get to the Atlantic Ocean, we'll be done. This time we had the route planned a little better, and we were on some more small bike friendly roads, and the trip was good. The whole 2 weeks we were gone, we had zero rain. That's the first time in my life I've ever went on a motorcycle trip that had zero rain. I say zero rain, but there was one time when we were in New Mexico where we could see this like plume of smoke rising in front of us, and as we got
We're in a national park.
yeah, it was something out west, but there was a national forest, national park or something. They were actually doing some controlled burning there, and it was the smoke that was seeding the clouds, which did cause rain for what, 5 miles or something.
Yeah.
But it
Really? So it was actually causing it. Wow.
yeah. And that was the only rain we saw the entire trip. And it was 85 degrees that day and raining, and I was freezing. But we'll get into that later because we'd been through some heat the days prior to that. Yeah, it was we left San Diego, but there were others besides Chris and I on the trip. There was 5 of us all together. My
On
brother,
bikes.
5 of us on bikes, and then we had a chase vehicle, which was a Toyota Tacoma pickup truck that was carrying a cooler and some spares and some of the heavier luggage. You know, we were carrying the minimal on the bikes. But
So you did have a chase vehicle.
well, for about half the trip, and then it split away from us when we were in Missouri, and then we rode on home the last 3 or 4 days without a chase vehicle. But the main purpose of the chase vehicle, or the main purpose of the pickup truck, was to get us to California.
To get us out, yeah, get you
Bikes
out
to
there.
California. So we rented a U-Haul trailer, one-way rental, to San Diego, which we drove from Cleveland to San Diego in 40 hours straight. No stop, well, stopping for fuel, but no overnight stops or sleep or anything else other than what we could catch in the truck. But we had 3 drivers.
Yep.
We rotated through, got us out there, and then 2 guys flew out to San Diego, Chris being one of them, and then 1 guy flew down from Seattle, Washington. So then all 6 of us and the truck and the 5 bikes were assembled in San Diego on 30th of September, ready to head east on the 1st, and everything went according to plan. Yeah, that's when it kicked off.
Great. That's a good start, at least.
Yep. And the only hitch in that giddy up was, I don't know if anyone's on Verizon, but they had a big outage of service on the day that these guys were supposed to arrive at the airport. So they're at the airport, really no way to get a hold of us. And we worked around it, and we did end up collecting everybody and getting back to San Diego. And we're able to leave on time. It was we had a great host in San Diego, a guy by the name of Kevin Glassett, who's known as GPS Kevin. Some guys might be familiar with him, but this guy curates routes on GPS, and he had a route. He had a route for us,
And he had done it a number of times.
That is a proven route that followed, small bike friendly roads, and so we used his route to get us back to the east because we were going to wing it. And the more we looked at it, there was places where we were trying to stay off the interstate, and we ended up just taking his route. And when I contacted him to get the routes, he said, "Where are you guys staying when you get to San Diego?" And we said, "Well, we haven't found a place yet. We're just going to get a hotel somewhere." He's like, stay at my place." So he's got this compound that he put us up in. And he's got a garage with like a bunkhouse attached to it. This picture we're looking at here, this is right outside the gate to his compound.
Oh, perfect. I nailed it.
Yeah, and then he rode out with us the first day for about 100 miles, and he turned around and went back home, and we continued on east. But so that's the 6 of us there, including Kevin, who's right in the middle, to the left of the photographer's shadow.
Okay.
And then that's the truck driver that's standing there that doesn't have any gear on. This guy was driving, and Kevin's wife was taking this picture as we were leaving the morning of the
So
first.
who's everybody going across? I see some monkeys, but also some looks like trail or like a cubs.
Okay, yeah, those are hunter cubs from left to right. So the guy on the left, his name's Brett, and then that's my brother Tim on the red cub, and then that's Yes Kevin as the third from the left, and then the guy on the monkey there is Jeff from Seattle, and then Chris is in the head to toe high vis, and then
some arrow stitch there.
Yep. So we had three monkeys and 2 cubs that went the whole distance, and then Kevin was on the ground that morning.
Cool. Very cool.
And I've traveled with Kevin in the past. I've done the Mid-Atlantic backcountry discovery route with him. I've gone to Baja, Mexico with one of his organized trips. that's all he does is curate trips and collect a group of guys to go on the trips. And there's like shared costs and camaraderie. It's not per se a guided tour, but it's a group of like-minded people that he brings together to do these trips.
He does those yearly?
He does multiple trips yearly. Yeah, GPS Kevin Adventure Rides. You can find him. He's got a pretty good internet presence. If you just Google that, you can find his offerings. And I highly recommend his system of navigation because it's not just GPX files. It's map overlays. You put a chip in your GPS, and it actually is like importing a map onto your GPS. And if you deviate from the line that's on the GPS, it doesn't continually try to reroute you. It's up to you to get back to the line, basically.
But you have a reference. It's like using a map rather than this kind of.
Exactly. I call it following
turn right. Turn right.
No, you don't get any of that. I just call it following the yellow brick road, and that's all you got to do is follow the blue line that populates on the map or on your GPS as a map line. Right? Yeah.
Sometimes there's a red line.
Yeah. He does. So in some cases, there's a red line that splits off. There'll be a fork in the road, and the red line is usually a more difficult route. It might be gravel. It might be. It's usually the alternate harder route, which we discovered at day 2 or 3. And some of us were myself with the BMW GS background. I'm pretty comfortable in the dirt or the sand or the gravel. Chris, not so much. No. Yeah, and it was real hot, and it was about 40 miles of like Forest Service road that we hit on day 2 or 3 there, and it was some tough going a couple times. You know, there's no suspension on those monkeys, and you got 12-inch wheels, and again, it was the wrong tool for the job.
Perfect.
That contributed to the adventure.
Great. Well, you want to walk us through each stage, or how do you want to do it?
Sure. Yeah. Day 1, we left San Diego.
Let me see if I can pull up the actual
series of maps.
Yeah. I don't know if these are going to be. Yeah, we can get them big enough.
There you go.
Yeah, that says 2020 plan, but that's when he did this trip initially. So we were just following the guided tour that he let out or it wasn't that guided tour, but the organized tour that he let out 4 years ago. So we were just.
It seems very organized.
Yeah, he does a great job. He really does. Can't say enough about this system. I think some of these are stock photos, but there you go, ride 1. And that's exactly where we went. So, and you can see there, right when you leave Escondido, which is the suburb where he lives, there's a red line that deviates from the blue line right there. Yep. So that's like a more adventurous route, maybe a more curvy road or whatever.
And this would be up in the Sierras, or where are we? Not quite there yet.
I don't know what you call those mountains there, actually. Just whatever is just east of San Diego.
Okay.
So he's in Escondido, which is just north of San Diego. And we left about 7:30 in the morning on October 1st. Excuse me. And it was a little chilly as we left out. And then we were in the mountains. And then as soon as we got to about Borrego Springs there, and then you can see us getting down close to the Salton Sea, we're down the backside of the mountain, or the eastern slope of the mountains. It started getting hot. I mean, like driving into a furnace. And it was quickly over 100 degrees.
And does that did the smell of the Salton Sea get to y'all?
It did not. No, it didn't. I had never been to the Salton Sea before, and I wanted to see like Slab City and everything, but it was so hot that I had no interest. I'm like, let's just keep our heads down and keep going. There was no time for sightseeing. There really wasn't. But there was no smell either. I didn't notice anything. We barely saw the Salton Sea. It was off to the distance.
Oh, wow.
But we went right by it, and I'll have to go back and see it another time.
And as an aside, one of the guys, Jeff, had a thermometer so we could get the temperature readings, and we could also get the elevation as we were moving along. So go ahead.
That first day, I don't know if it was the hottest day, but it was well over 100 degrees by the time we got out there by the Salton Sea. I mean, you're just in the middle of the desert at that point. And then when we got up to Blythe, that's on the Colorado River, and then we went another 50 miles up to Parker. And by the time we got off the road, 270 miles on the first day. That was a big day. It was probably a 10-hour day. We left at 7:30 in the morning. And I think we lost an hour that day too because we went into Central Time Zone.
Mountain time.
Yeah, Mountain. I'm sorry. So yeah, by the time we got off the road and got something to eat, it was time to pretty much just go to bed, cool off.
But mostly paved roads.
Yes, yeah, that was 100% paved that first day. Yep.
Okay. What about the little red bit?
One red section there, I think Kevin called that the Palomar Grade, which is, he said, it's one of the premier motorcycling roads in the San Diego area. He said when guys leave San Diego to do a day ride on a Sunday or Saturday afternoon, that's one of the go-to routes. So and that's how far Kevin followed us out. He went to where the red reconvenes with the blue line on the east side there, and then he turned around and went back home, and we continued. And Kevin gave us some great tips for crossing the desert too, because we saw the forecast and we knew it was going to be over 100. And he said, anytime you stop, wet your clothing down, take your shirt off, soak it in a sink, put it back on, pour a bottle of water down your pants, whatever. And it sounds crazy, but it felt so good. And, you get the evaporative cooling because the desert air is so dry. But you'd be dry again we would be dry again within 30 to 40 minutes. And then, we wouldn't stop again for an hour, a little over an hour. We were stopping.
I definitely encountered that riding cross country with especially if you're wearing full gear. And I was surprised to learn from some of the long distance riders that you should be wearing, don't ride in your t-shirt because it just means you dry off faster. And then what they would do is pour water down their sleeves onto their long shirt, and it manages to keep you cool longer. And yeah, it made a huge difference to me riding.
Yep.
So the other bit of information is each of the bikes has basically a 1-gallon tank, and the bikes are getting about 100 miles to the gallon. So we're stopping every 75 to 100 miles to get fuel. So
just like a Janus.
Well, so that keeps you getting off the bike kind of at a pretty good interval. Some of us have longer legs and stuff, so we tend to cramp up a little bit faster while we're riding on a little monkey and whatnot. So it's good to be able to get off and get fueled up and get some food and stuff like that.
By the end of the day, we had our fuel stops down really well. By the end of the first day, I should say, one of the guys with it was a smoker, so we would fill his bike up first, and we'd all fill up on the same credit card. We're not going to run 6 credit cards each for $2 or something. So one guy, we'd take turns paying for the gas, but the smoking guy, we'd always let him fill up first. He'd go over to the side and smoke 2 or 3 cigarettes, and then we get the rest of the bikes filled up, and then get cooled off, drink some water, pour some water on us, and then move on again.
Everybody could head out, ready to go.
That first day, like I said, it was cold in the morning, and by the time we got off the road in the evening, we were just done. I mean, just completely just done. But
what's our average speed?
Yeah, we're averaging about 42 miles an hour, I think. A couple times we did like a bicycle pace line where one guy would break the wind in the front, and we would be just nose to tail, all of us, 5 of us. Chris wasn't super comfortable in that situation. Some of us came from a strong bicycling background, and we're used to riding in a really close formation. So, but when we did that, we could get the bikes up to about 55, 57 miles an hour, which was pretty cool. You see the difference, the dramatic difference that sharing the load in the front makes. And we were calling it NASCAR style.
Oh, I know all about that, especially with some of the long distance riding I've done. If there's two guys, it's amazing. Especially if I usually have more gear. I've got all the tools and stuff like that, and I'm taller. Get a smaller guy in front, and he ducks down, and I can just cruise up to speed. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Or if you get behind a truck going exactly the right speed, that helps too.
Mm-hmm. Our smallest guy was 140 pounds, and he was a smaller guy. He was super aerodynamic. Chris was probably the biggest guy. He's physically the tallest and everything, and maybe carrying a little bit more weight too. But it's amazing the difference not pushing that wind makes.
Yep. Cool. Cool. All right, let's take another look at some comments, see if we got any questions here. We got Mick in Winchester, number 1093. Hank sipping some hot tea. We got Whit Lindstrom on from Charleston, South Carolina, 450, number 277. John Hiss, 250, number 1119. Havasu City, Arizona. Dad's Root Beer. Nice day riding. Great. Motar, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Yamaha FC6, sipping coffee. Just put down the deposit for a Griffin 250, 164 today. Can't wait to receive it. Well, congratulations, my friend. Welcome to the Janus family and to rambling. Although you can probably ramble on a Yamaha FC6. Sirius Blatt, dialing in from the UK, from sipping water in bed. It's late. Sold my infields and just placed an order for a new Norton after extended test ride. Wow, nice. How's Norton doing? Sirius? Okay, we got through the volume questions. We figured that one out. Let's get on. Sound is good. Semtex says, hey, Richard, I've been thinking about names and seems like old 68 is the name she goes by now. You know, it might just be true. My bike just might be named 68. Old 68, I like it. Russ Peters, 450, number 86. Detlef, Water Tonight. Norton, Dominator 88 SS. Joel Yanda says, sound is good. And Ed M, back for a second week. Currently sipping a cup of black coffee and driving a 2009 Silverado. Well, that means you've got plenty of room in your garage for adding something else. Cool. All right. Well, tell us some more, guys.
Okay, so day 2, up and at 'em early again. I should mention we were hoteling it all the way to, and we stayed at sometimes we stayed at like a Best Western or something like a name brand, and sometimes we were in some real flea bags.
Were you scheduling the hotels as you rode or ahead of
Yes.
time?
Yeah, we were
Great.
scheduling them as we rode, but Kevin makes suggestions of places that he stayed in the past and places that he recommends.
Tell him about the donuts, whatever.
Yeah, so Kevin puts what he calls donuts on his maps, and these donuts are places of interest. It might be a gas station, it might be a place to eat, it might be a place to stay. So we would typically use the places he recommended, but we were in like the off season, October. You know, it's after Labor Day, kids are back in school, vacation stuff's kind of winding down. So finding places to stay when we were traveling was not a problem. But there was a couple times where we would call ahead and they'd be like, there's nothing available, you know, for whatever reason. So we would have to go to an alternate place. But we never had trouble finding any place, even calling the day of. But you can see on day 2 here, we rode from Parker up through Jerome, which is a real cool old mining town that's kind of touristy and like artsy.
What state are you in here?
This is Arizona now. Yeah.
Arizona, okay.
So from we left essentially Parker, Arizona, and we made it to Winslow, Arizona. Everyone knows Winslow, Arizona from the Eagles song "Standing on the Corner" in Winslow, Arizona, and that's a Route 66 city, which was kind of cool. We did cross Route 66 a couple times, and there's always like tourist stuff to see that's cool on Route 66, and there's always like some sort of a hotel infrastructure. So that was. We ended up staying. I think we stayed at a Best Western that night. Yeah, but then we all loaded into the truck that was with us and rode into town. We were like a mile outside of town, maybe so. And we got something to eat. We just did some of the like touristy stuff, and then went back for a couple hours.
How did you protect the bikes when you were sleeping or going into town?
Good question.
Well, it varied. It depended on the locale where we were staying. If we were staying at like a nicer place, we would just park them like by the front lobby under the overhang.
Yep.
But we did have like a 30-foot cable that we strung through the bike. So we said, somebody could grab one bike and pick it up and throw it in a truck and be gone in 2 minutes. But when they're all tied together in one big tangle, they would have to work a little bit harder at it. So
yeah.
But I don't think we had anybody mess with the bikes at all the whole time. There was never anything pilfered from the bikes. Like we'd leave some bags and some GPS mounts and stuff like that on the bikes, and there was never any evidence that anybody had messed with anything. So,
Nice.
But it was a concern because the bikes are so small. They weigh like you could put it in I've put my Honda Monkey in my Honda Fit before, like so you get really like carried away very easily. They only weigh like 230 pounds. So it was a concern. So we did kind of gangle them together when we
Yeah.
stopped for the evening. There was a couple of times though where we put them in the room with us. There was one place in Indiana. I won't mention the name of the town, but it wasn't the nicest town or the nicest part of town where we were staying.
Leave it to Indiana to be the one spot in the country.
So there was two sheriff's deputies arresting someone as we had just checked in. They'd just given us the keys. We were going to our room and they're leading this woman out with her arm like twisted up behind her back. And I said to the one sheriff's deputy, the one guy put her in the car. And I said to the other one, I said, this place is as bad as it looks. And the guy said, it's worse than it looks. You guys don't want to be here. He said, you absolutely don't want to be here. It was like, I was rooming with the guy that smoked that particular evening, and he went out to smoke after it got dark, and he came back to the room. He's like, lock the door, man, double lock the door. It was like it was a bad place, but yeah, the bikes were in the room with us, so I slept well, because there's been times when I've been places where I'm like, I'm not going to sleep well tonight because I'm going to get up and check on the bike like 10 times,
Oh, I've done it. Yep.
When it's sitting in the room right there with you, there's nothing to worry about. Actually, I probably should have parked the bike in front of the door in case anybody tried to come through. But
Come in this. Take the bike.
So yeah.
So what's the big green area? What's this park? State park? National park?
That's Kachina?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's like a national forest. It wasn't a forest, but like some sort of federal lands of some sort.
Yeah.
I can't read it on the little map here, but so it started cooling down on this day. This is day 2 because, like I said, Jerome's up in the mountains again, and it started when you get to elevation. But we hit high temperatures between Parker and before we got up in the mountains.
The Coconino National Forest.
Yeah, there you go, Coconino National Forest. That's where we saw the wildfire too that was causing a brief rainfall. But it had gotten to 117 degrees before we cooled off, and then that's when we hit that little rain spell. That's when we hit that little rain spell that was 85 degrees, and I was freezing because it had been 115, almost 120 there for like a day and a half. But,
we got a question. Syria, this is a UK listener. Question for Chris and Pete. How did you get on with other road users? I have ridden a Grom and never had so many smiles and courteous interactions.
Quite a bit of that. People remarking that, boy, they used to have one of those bikes when they were a kid, and gosh, where are you guys from? And then they would notice that we have Ohio plates, and they would kind of shake their heads, say, what are you guys doing? And so we started in San Diego, we're riding back to Cleveland. They'd shake their head, but the one guy was very impressed. And the other thing was, because we had the support truck behind us, we had to be very careful with holding up traffic and stuff like that. So as people are coming up behind us, the truck would pull to the right with his turn signal on, and then we would also go single file, either on the edge or in the soft shoulder if it's drivable, and let folks pass us. And truly, sometimes we're only going 35 or 40 miles an hour, so we had to be cognizant of folks behind us, and folks I think appreciated it, and just gave us a thumbs up. Others gave us something else up, but
we did have commo between all the riders too. We were running Senna mesh intercom, and so we could talk amongst ourselves. And then the guy in the back would say, "We got a customer in the checkout line." That's what we came to. That meant there was a car behind us. And then the guy in the front would say, like, "I'm going to take the shoulder," and so the guy in the front would take the shoulder if it was a good clean shoulder, and then the guys behind him would stack up in single file, and we'd all put our right turn signal on, and we'd raise our hand. It's kind of the universal signal. Not every motorist knows that, but you raise your left hand to let the people know that you acknowledge that we want them to come around. And then people would usually get the hint pretty quickly and go around us. Sometimes they were chomping at the bit to go around us, but sometimes they're like, oh, I think they're signaling it to go around. So we sometimes there was no place to turn off or to pull off because the shoulder was too small. And then we would say like, hey, we're starting a parade back here. And then we would look for something like a parking lot you could pull in and pull back out, or like a pull
Got
off of some sort. So we tried to be courteous to the other road users because we don't want everyone to have to ride our pace only because we can only go 45 miles an hour. And people were really good about it. And the roads that were chosen for this route, when Kevin laid it out, some of it is an established bicycle route. And those bicycle routes are laid out on roads that are less trafficked and usually have wide shoulders. So it works to our advantage on small bore motorcycles, just as it would work to a bicyclist's advantage.
Yeah. And what is the max speed on the Monkey, for example?
I'm going to say I can get mine to, really ringing it out, I can get it to about 58. I think the highest speed I hit on the trip was like maybe 64. Now that's maybe coming off somebody else's draft on a downhill, but you're starting to like twist the motor up pretty tight, and I didn't want to do damage to the motor, so we were all on stock gearing, and we just I think realistically top speed on it, it's about 52.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff actually got his up to 70 one time, kind of a downhill with a backdraft. So, but again, he's small, he's aerodynamic, and he's very empty-headed, so it's a lot less weight.
Awesome. All right. So
Ride 3.
day 3.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, I should mention too, when we got day 3. Okay, that was when we got over to Cuba, New Mexico. Then, so at this point, we're kind of paralleling Interstate 40, roughly just north of it, and we got to Cuba, New Mexico. And while Cuba is right on the Continental Divide Trail, which there's an established hiking trail, mountain bike trail, and you can even take an off-road motorcycle along the whole Continental Divide from the Mexican border to the Canadian border. So we were walking in town there, going to get something for dinner, and we met this girl that was on a mountain bike. We just seen 2 other bicyclists, so we were like, hey, were you looking for 2 other people on mountain bikes? So she was like, no, I'm by myself. And we struck up a conversation with her. And I think I've already mentioned my bicycle touring background, so I'm always very generous with bicyclists. I said, hey, let us buy you dinner tonight. And there was a Mexican restaurant right across the street. She's like, no, I'm gonna go do something. We're like, come on, we'll buy you dinner. And she's like, okay. So she joins us for dinner. So this girl, she was French Canadian, I think from Montreal or Quebec or something over there. She had started in Alaska, had ridden all the way down to the Canadian border, American-Canadian border, and was following the Continental Divide Trail with the, there you go, yes sir, yep, Mary. And so then she was ultimately going to the tip of Baja, Mexico. So
Wow.
she's a very intrepid young lady, and she told us her tales of the road. We told her what we were doing, and we just had a very enjoyable visit. And did a 1-hour dinner with her, and then she went on her way, and then we went on our way. But it's just the people you meet along the way that are, make for an interesting journey. She was certainly one of the highlights there with her. Made us feel like kind of like old, lazy old guys, She was really out there doing it.
So we actually
That's
asked
awesome.
her, where are you staying tonight? And she says she is just going to wait for the sun to go down and it get dark, and then she'll pitch her tent somewhere. She doesn't know where.
Yeah.
And she'll sleep out and then get up early the next morning, break down her camp, and then off she goes. So this is a gal, 27 years old, doing all this traveling solo. And I was just shocked at the guts that she has to do something like that. It seems a little sketchy to me, but as you can see, she's willing to sit around and talk to 6 plus 60 guys at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
And then
Awesome.
the next morning, when we were packing up at the hotel, there was 2 other bicyclists staying at our hotel. They're like, "Oh yeah, we ran into this other girl last night. You must be the guys that bought her dinner." So I guess it made a real impression on her that we had bought her
Aw.
dinner. She had told these other people, like, "That's the best meal I've had in 3 weeks," or something. So it was really affirming to know that we had contributed to her journey. So she got something out of it. We enjoyed her company, and like I said, when I was traveling on a bicycle, if people would give me something, I was always super grateful. And whenever I see somebody traveling on a bicycle now, and I'm on the motorcycle, I give them whatever, water or Cliff Bar or anything I have. That we have the
Mhm.
luxury of being able to carry so much more extra weight than you do on a bicycle.
And let me also do a shout out. As we were approaching Cuba, um, I noticed probably the largest solar solar field that I've ever seen, and just west of Cuba and north of that road that we were on. And honest to God, Richard, it went on for miles, and I couldn't believe just the depth of this whole solar farm, or whatever you want to call it. So if anybody knows the name of that out there, I would love for you to let us know, because I'd like to chase that down and do a book report on that for next month when it's due.
It was super impressive.
Cool.
It went
Huh.
from the road heading north for probably a mile or two, as far as you could see, really. And it went on like east to west for miles and miles and miles. It was absolutely gigantic. That's the place for it. It was nice and sunny.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you spend the night in another hotel then?
Well,
Yeah.
so Cuba was an interesting place. It's a little bit long in the tooth there. There's we were calling this lodge the Cuban Lodge. It was Kevin's recommendation, and this person that was answering the phone kept saying, like, "Oh yeah, we might have rooms available tonight." I mean, I started calling him like at 10 in the morning. She said, "Call back in an hour." I said, "Well, okay." When I stopped, we called back in an hour, no answer. Called back at noon. She said, "Oh, well, we'll see. I don't know if there are rooms are available." I'm like, "How big is your place, and how do you not know how many people are staying there?" Well, when we finally get to Cuba, we pull right up to this motel. We find it, the Cuban Lodge, and we go up and knock on the door. And it's an elderly man and woman that I can only assume have owned the place for 50 or 60 years. And we're like, "Do you have rooms? I've called you 3 or 4 times today." And she said, "Well, we don't have any water." So then she says, "Call back in an hour." And I'm like, "I've been on this motorcycle for 10 hours today. I'm not coming back in an hour." So we found an alternative place to stay. But I think she was afraid to tell us, like, we don't have any water, because she didn't want to lose the business. And they were hoping they were going to get it fixed. There was some talk about a valve that was needing replaced. And we even offered, we said, there's 6 of us here, and 4 of us are pretty good mechanics.
And we have tools with us.
I said, "Is there anything we can do to help?" Because these people were like they were elderly. I mean, and the picture like the person you would see in a rural New Mexico town. This woman's got her makeup done in like a 1950s fashion. The man's wearing like a shirt with a string tie and everything. It is they looked like straight out central casting for New Mexico characters. And they offered to help, which is probably good. But we went in and found another hotel, which is I think you have a picture of it. Danger Jeff
let's
is
pull it up.
pointing at a hotel sign in one of the pictures that we had sent you. That was in the same town there. Yeah, I think it was called the El Dorado, if I recall correctly. And that's the
Let's
kind of
see.
place that we gravitated towards, was like the mom and pop hotels where you could park your bike
Yeah.
right in front of your room. There's Winslow, Arizona. Yeah, it was good. That's our nose to tail riding style there. That was 117 degrees, and that was the only shade that was to be had. We were under those hay bales there, and it was still.
Well, tell them that story too.
Which part?
Well, so we're riding along, and I'm dying because it's so hot. And I said, "Pete, we got to stop. We got to pull over." And Pete says, "Well, I got to find shade." I said, "Have you looked on the backside of these hay bales?" And Richard, there's hay all over the place out there. I don't know whether it's an industry or what, but I noticed on the backside, it's shady for 10 to 20 feet. So he says, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea." So we pulled in there and we're hiding behind these hay bales, drinking water, and just trying to get our bearings a little bit physically, or at least for me.
That was
No
hot.
farmers came and got. Oh, here we go. What is
Yeah,
this?
that's just an old roadside bar. It hasn't been open for quite a while, but I just like the way it looked. I like the architecture.
Oh, we got some injuries.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not finding the hotel picture yet. But,
Okay. It's I thought we'd sent one to you, but I don't know where. Oh, here it is.
we'll get to,
Up
we'll get
right.
to.
Go to the right and up.
Of the hay bales.
Up of the hay bale. Yeah, Jeff in the blue shirt there.
Oh, they're right there.
Yeah, that was it. The Frontier. I was thinking it was called the El Dorado. But yeah, that's the Frontier Hotel Motel, and
We recommend it highly.
yeah, I mean,
Great.
that place was fine. It depends what you want. They didn't offer breakfast, but there was a Speedway right across the street, and I went over the next morning to get some coffee. This happened 3 separate times on the trip. I don't know if I looked like a homeless person or what, but I went in the Speedway across the street to get a cup of coffee, and the lady was like, "Just a coffee?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Yeah, just take it." So three times on the trip.
You want some soup with that too?
But I was like, "Huh, okay, I'll take it." So I don't know if she didn't want to bother to ring it up, or she was worried about like bigger sales or something. But it was given the free coffee. So if you don't get breakfast, it's no big deal. We always have Cliff Bars with us, and we had some bananas, and as long as I get some coffee in the morning, I'm good to go. But,
Okay, day 4.
So tell us about day 4.
day 4, we left Cuban Lodge in a minute. Oh, we went through Los Alamos there within the first hour. And you can see if you zoom in on the maps there's like a mile marker between each of the points of interest. So from the Cuban Lodge or the city of Cuba over to Los Alamos, there was 68 miles. So you have some idea like when your gas stop's going to be, and you can count it down, like when you're going to be stopping and stuff, which is nice because you don't have to worry about like who's ready to stop when and stuff. But coming into Los Alamos, it's still like an active research facility there, and there's almost like a toll gate plaza kind of booth there where you have to stop and show ID to even go through this like sensitive area where there must be.
Seemed almost military.
It did. It was very. I thought all the stuff out there was done. I thought it was all back to World War II, and I didn't realize they were still out there doing top secret government stuff. But apparently they are. So yeah, we went through Los Alamos, which was kind of cool, and then get up to Taos, which I thought we were going to see something more in Taos, but we didn't. We just kind of stopped, made a fuel stop there. I know there's some Georgia O'Keeffe history and stuff there. I wanted to see like the famous church or something there, but now we kind of moved through.
Just kept on
going. Then from Taos,
that's sometimes the bad side of having these to get somewhere a long way, and you miss sometimes seeing everything you want to.
Right. We did stop at an old-fashioned trading post out in Arizona. It was like a Native American trading post. It was called the Hubble Trading Post, and the guy that started it was by the name Hubble, and then he founded it like in, I don't remember the exact year, but the late 1800s, just say 1875 or something. And it's been an operational trading post ever since then. Even to this day, you can go in there and you can buy snacks and stuff, but there's also Native American weavers there, and they raise these sheep there that they actually process the wool and weave the blankets, and they have like old guns and traps and stuff that looks like a trading post, like out of an Old West movie. So that was one of the touristy things we did. I'm really glad we stopped there. It was super cool, and it's part of the National Park Service now. So there's National Park Service presence there, and then the trading post itself. And there was a big barn there. They said was the only 2-story barn in the entire state of Arizona when it was built, and so that tells you like how old it was. But, what the architecture in the Southwest looks. This thing kind of stood out.
Yeah,
and it was just a cool place. So we did see a little bit of stuff, but Chris and I talked about it after we got home, and you can see these ride things here between 250 and 350 miles a day.
That's a lot.
It is a lot
Yeah.
on a little bike at 40 miles an hour.
Even on a big bike, you're moving.
Yep. I would have liked 200 miles a day to give more time to stop and smell the flowers a little bit more. But there was a couple guys that needed to be home by a certain deadline,
Yep.
and we kind of just followed the prescription that was on the maps that were laid out by Kevin. So
Cool.
we ended up in Raton, which was a cool old town. I think I'm saying that correctly. Raton.
And Raton, what state are we in now?
That's in New Mexico still. So this
Still
whole
in New
day
Mexico.
was in New Mexico, yeah. And that was he said there used to be, we talked to a guy there that ran a little Honda shop. And this Honda shop had been started by his father, and it was like on the main street, and it looked like the size of like a storefront shoe store or something. And the guy said that his father had started that shop and ran the shop till he was 99 years old, running 6 days a week. It was R&D Honda, was the name of the place.
R&D Honda.
And the guy said he pretty much grew up in the shop. He was 60 some years old, and his father's since passed away, but he's running the shop now. But it's kind of something you don't see so much anymore. These like independent shops in a storefront on like old Main Street again, it was a town that was kind of past its prime because the mines had all played out. And he said there wasn't the money in the town anymore that used to be there. But you could see that there did used to be money there because there was lots and lots of buildings with old neon signs like the movie theater and some kind of grand architecture for a really small town like that. So you could tell that at one time the town was really thriving, but it was still
R&D Honda.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the channel on YouTube, Fort9. Either of you all follow that?
Sure.
He just did a video on what is it? It's like how to swindle a motorcycle dealer. But really, what it is, it's like a homage to independent motorcycle repair shops. It's absolutely fantastic because it just turns into him talking to this guy Ken about how he just works on people's bikes and enjoys life, and it's a really wonderful. Those shops are far and few between, and they're becoming less common.
Yeah. Well, what caught our eyes when we were riding into town looking for the hotel we were going to, there was a Honda Monkey sitting on the curb in front of this thing, and then we said, "Oh, that's a Honda shop. It's crazy." So after we got checked in the hotel, which was only 2 blocks away or something, we said, "Hey, let's go back and talk to those guys at the Honda shop." And they came out and we're looking at our bikes. It was the owner and the mechanic, and that was it. Just the 2 guys sitting in there, and the shop was exactly on the inside what you would expect it to look like when you looked at the outside. Everything was just shoehorned in there. Just some of the stuff you could tell the inventory was very old. And some of the accessories, I mean, there's probably some like really like gold in there if you like
some sweet
gold.
NOS.
Yeah, exactly right. Even accessories and stuff, right? But so we had a nice talk with these guys, and they recommended some places to eat in town. We said, "Hey, we're looking for something. What would you recommend?" And they sent us to a pizza shop that made some really good pizza. And so it was just more people we met along the way, basically.
Cool. We got Ed Meyer. Love Janus Motorcycles. This is the guy who says he has a Silverado in this garage. Love Janus Motorcycles and the company. One day I'll be riding a Halcyon 450. Greg Sample, 450 number 6 from Murfreesboro, sipping on a little George Dickel. Jim Swingle, greetings from Jim in Scottsboro, Alabama. Halcyon 450 number 367, not yet built, sipping coffee. Chris Roman, correct my pronunciation there, Chris. Loving my new Halcyon 250 number 1112, sneaking out of work here on the West Coast to drink a touch of coffee. Wave Shredder, Tim in DFW with Phoenix 22, Griffin 156, and Halcyon 294, and too many other bikes to list. Drinking ice water tonight since it's almost 90 today. Keith Haywood, 706 in New York, Merlot. Jim says, greetings from Scottsboro, Alabama. Halcyon 450 number 3. Oh, he's double posting. Charles Selman from San Francisco, Griffin 124, Aurelius, and half owner of Griffin 82, Dr. John, sipping a Sub-Hunter Imperial IPA. Spencer's in DFW. Green tea is good for me. It's provided for free. Gotta leave. I have to pee. Arthur Nordby here from Cornelius, North Carolina. Halcyon 250 number 1039. Waiting for Griffin 250 number 159. Over Road 1300 Yamaha Deluxe. Sipping on water. Forrest Johnson, that's a new name. Hello from the Redwoods of Northern California. VW70 Bug, Long Island, New York, 1970 Harley-Davidson XLH, Boattail Sportster. Welcome. Sipping on a cold seltzer at the moment. Joel says he's very excited, talking about his Griffin, I'm sure. Arthur, 1039, named Sweet Cream, built for morning coffee rides and more. Plus, Griffin number 159 will be Little Black Bear, one that lives in the woods. We got Grant. Awesome, Arthur, one of my favorite Halcyon 250s. Mark from Ogema, Wisconsin, 300 Vespa GTS. We got every kind of ride represented here. Wave Shooter says, while on the topic of fuel tanks, need to redesign the Janus fuel tanks. They should be a bit bigger and lower area for the fuel pickup. Nice. Daniel's debating on a 450 or a 250. And let's see. Sirius says, I asked him about how Norton's doing. Norton now in safe hands for now after some big issues. Commando doesn't have to comply to Euro rules as it's made in small numbers. Feels so alive compared to the R9T I had at the start of the year. And then he also has one more question for you all. He says, do you think you would have had as much to talk about with such passion if the trip was done on a GS?
If I was doing it on the GS, I would have been on the Transamerica Trail or something to that effect. And there would have been just much to talk about, but it would be a different conversation.
It would be a different story. Exactly.
Right. So
yep.
The GS isn't so much fun on the road. But in a short answer, no, we wouldn't have much to talk about because you couldn't go anywhere on these little bikes, a gas station, a hotel, or anything without striking up a conversation with somebody. You know, we called them old man magnets. Like you park somewhere and like some old guy would come out. He's like, I had one of those. What year is that thing? We say, well, this is a brand new bike. It's, you know, a couple years old. And they're like, are you kidding me? And they have a retro look to them, similar to the Janus. It has a retro look. And when people see them, they don't know what they're looking at initially. And then when they figure it out, they're like, that's really cool, you know? And so to answer the question, no, we wouldn't have as much to talk about because we would have missed the personal interactions that we had. A lot of times when you're on a big bike, it can be intimidating where people don't want to.
That's true.
Approach you, especially a group of 5 or 6 guys. You know, they're not going to approach 5 or 6 guys on big bikes, but 5 or 6 guys on little bikes seem pretty innocuous. And we were open to conversation all the way too. We actually engage people. Chris is very engaging with strangers. Sometimes we have to drag them away because
he's being an ambassador.
Yeah, he is. He really is.
Well, cool. Well, how about day 5?
Okay, day 5. Chris, you want to take that one?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so leaving Raton, New Mexico, you see the blue line goes to the east, and then there's a divergence there, the blue line or the red line. And we decided we're going to take the red line based solely on the fact that it goes over and nicks the panhandle of Oklahoma. We said, well, we might as well tick off Oklahoma as a state we've ridden through on this trip. So let's see, the name of that little town there is Kenton. That's the panhandle of Oklahoma there. So we went over through Oklahoma, and you can see too that stretch there is 153 miles between gas from the time we left Raton to the time we get to Springfield. So we made sure we had our 5-gallon gas can in the pickup truck full of gas because we said we're not going to make that far on what we've got in the tank. So we did have to stop and fuel up somewhere along the line. And that was the only time on the trip that we had to go to the reserve gas can that was in the truck.
Yep.
And furthermore, that whole stretch from where it turns red till darn near the time when it gets up to Springfield was dirt. And
nice.
Well, I should say it was gravel. And it was flat. And there was a couple of bumpy sections through there. And like I said, sand, yes, and
cattle guards.
Yeah. So Chris got a little worn out on there. He was there was a couple of us that are very dirt accomplished, and you know, I can go 4th gear top speed through that all day long. But when Chris, we would get ahead of him because when he would catch up, he finally said, "This is not fun for me. I'm not having fun right now. And it was hot here too. It was maybe what 85, 90 or something.
90, yeah.
And the guys in the front, of course, are not eating any dust, and the guys in the back are eating a lot of dust. And so there was a when we finally got back to the hardball, it was well received by certainly by Chris. And then from there, we pressed on all the way up to Dodge City, Kansas. So we went through the corner of left New Mexico, through the corner of Oklahoma. We were in Colorado there briefly. That Springfield's actually in Colorado. Then we turned east there, and by the time you get into Ulysses, there you're in Kansas. And we got into Dodge City.
How many states total?
That's a good question. I never even counted. So we went California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Oklahoma.
Kansas.
Well, no, Colorado, then Kansas, then Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. Nine states. I don't think I missed anything. So yeah, it was nice.
All right. How about from Dodge City on?
Well, Dodge City, I gotta say, when we were there, I don't know if anyone's been through Dodge City, but that's a cattle town. There's huge rail lines and stockyards there. So we said we got to get us a steak dinner while we're here. So we went to a restaurant that was in an old rail station, and it actually had rail cars inside the station that you could sit in to dine. And we had a pretty good steak dinner there.
What was that place called?
That's a good question. It had some sort of a train theme name or something.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was called, frankly, but it was a big place. They had some sort of a concert there the night before, like a fundraiser. So I mean, it was big enough that you could have like a music act in there. I'm gonna say it probably sat a couple hundred people. It was because it was a former active train station. It was a big building. But yeah, we had a good meal there.
You go from Dodge City to Iola.
Yeah, the next day, Dodge City to Iola, Kansas. And I'm going to say 100% of that day was on a bicycle route. It was like bicycle route 74. We kept seeing 76. We kept seeing these signs, and but it was flat and not particularly like you can see there the road's mostly straight the whole way.
Pretty straight.
It wasn't particularly engaging riding. But it was on an established bicycle route of some sort that used state highways, of course. I mean, it wasn't like we were riding on a rail
trail or something. Yeah.
But it's actually listed as USBR, United States Bicycle Route, and it has a different emblem for it, kind of an upside down guitar pick with a bicycle in the middle of it, US, and then we were on number 76. So we would occasionally see bicyclists.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did see quite a few bicyclists. And I think the way they establish these bike routes, it's a parallel route. Like if you look on the map there's a much cleaner, straighter route that goes right through like Kingman and Pratt and Wichita.
Yeah.
But
400.
So there would be no reason for trucks or anything else to like be on the road that we were on. So riding that parallel route made it alleviated a lot of the traffic.
Cool. Any other crazy stories from the Regency Inn?
From the Regency Inn, I don't think we ended up. Did we stay at the Regency Inn? I don't remember where we stayed there that night. We did see something crazy along the way, though. We were riding down the road, and we went down a side road. We missed a turn. We got off the blue line, so we said, "Oh, we'll just go up here and we'll make a left. We'll be right back on it." And we went through this road, and there's like 8-foot tall fences on both sides of the road, and then we see zebras and ostriches and some other like water buffalo. There's some sort of exotic animal farm out there. So we stopped right beside the road and took pictures of all these crazy animals in the middle of Kansas. It was kind of surreal. Like you're in Kansas, which isn't particularly interesting after you've come through the desert Southwest, you know. It was beautiful, and it's like being stark and everything, but seeing African animals there in the middle of it was kind of just a curveball that we weren't expecting.
Oh, fantastic.
And then, I don't remember the Regency Inn. I don't remember.
It's all a blur.
Yeah.
It's all a blur. So
Yeah,
let's go on to day 7. We got to keep moving.
Okay.
So we went from Iowa down to
So there's Houston, Missouri is the next stop. Well, that was only a 250-mile day. So we said, let's do another 50 miles. And we ended up continuing on the same route to day number 8. Where did we put that? Day 7.
I'll find it.
Yeah, so I got it over here. We actually did an extra day, or the extra 50 miles.
You did both these two?
Well, we didn't do the whole thing, but we went in.
Okay.
So we went past Houston there, and we stopped in a place called Eminence, Missouri, which Eminence was kind of cool. It was like there was a river that went through there, and there you could tell, like in the summertime, they do a lot of like canoeing and rafting and kayaking, that sort of thing there. So there was a pretty good tourist infrastructure there with cabins and stuff you could stay in. Yeah, Eminence is right before you get to Ellington there on day 8. So we rented this cabin that was like 2 bedrooms up, 2 bedrooms down, full kitchen and everything. It was pretty inexpensive, and there was plenty of places to eat and stuff there. And we met some other motorcycle guys that were staying there. These guys were from Tennessee, and they had ridden out, or they'd trailered out there, and they were just riding the Ozark Mountains around that area. We gabbed with them a little bit, and they were all on big bikes, but motorcycle guys can always have a conversation.
Yeah.
And then
Very cool.
The next day on day 9, we departed from GPS Kevin's route because his route actually goes all the way to New York City, and we had at that point we were going to start on a northeastern trajectory to get us back to Cleveland. So that's exactly what we did.
So on this route, would this be diverging from where you're all rode?
Yes, correct. We didn't do day 9 on there. So day 8 there from, let's just say from about where it says Rustler Cafe up there, we started. We went to the northeast from there, right into the city of St. Louis. We were going to take a ferry. There's a ferry across the Mississippi, which is always a cool experience. I don't know if other guys feel this way, but if I'm on a motorcycle and I'm going to cross the Mississippi, I always look for a ferry because there's just something about going across the river on a ferry. But when we got about to where the Rustler Cafe is there, we said, let's call ahead and make sure the ferry's running. Well, it turns out the ferry wasn't running. It was a Wednesday, and it only ran on like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday or something. We were there on the wrong day. So we said, well, I guess we got to go to St. Louis because, again, if people aren't used to the Mississippi, they don't have a bridge every 50 miles or something. You might have to go 100 miles or something to find a bridge. So you can't ride up to the river and say, like, where am I going to get across? You got to kind of plan your route as you're approaching. And we were on these small bikes, so we're not going to take an interstate bridge. We had to find an old, 2-lane highway bridge. And so we went right into downtown St. Louis and found a bridge to get across, which put us right into East St. Louis, which wasn't a nice place to be. And then we got out of there as quickly as possible. And I think that's the night we made it on over to southern Indiana. We crossed all of Illinois that day and made it to southern Indiana. And that's where we were in the hotel where we had to put the bikes in the room with us. And then that's about the time I felt my clutch start slipping. I was telling myself for a while, I'm like, my clutch feels like it's slipping. I'm like, nah, that's just my imagination, And then I'm like, nah, my clutch is definitely slipping. So at that point I said, I'm going to ride in the back of the group because I didn't want to push the wind in the front. And I'm thinking, take it easy on the clutch. So we get up close to Indiana, and I'm thinking, Indiana is like a motorhead town. There's got to be like a big Honda dealer here somewhere. And we called around looking for clutch plates, and nobody had them. And then we looked forward, and in southern Ohio, over by Dayton, in the city of Troy, Ohio, the guy said, I can have them here tomorrow morning. I can order them. They'll overnight them. They'll be there tomorrow morning. I said, cool. So that's where we started going towards. That was on our route to northeast trajectory again. Picked up the clutch plates the next day. I'm like, well, I'm going to try to limp home. I don't know if anyone's been to southwestern Ohio, but it's pretty flat from Dayton all the way to Cleveland. There's really no hills to speak of. So I said, I think I can limp this thing home with the bad clutch.
So once you got it up to speed, it would hold, but it just accelerating?
Actually, it would even accelerate, but like at speed, if I was pushing the wind, I could feel it slipping. But if I would stay behind somebody, I just being easy on the clutch, I could make it work. But there was no
Yeah.
adjustment left on the clutch. I'm like, yeah, this is not good. So uh, I got the parts, and I said, if I have to, I'll change it on the side of the road. But I'm going to try to make it home. I'd rather not crack the case either here at the dealer or at a hotel or on the road. I'm going to try to limp it home. But if I can't make it home, I got the parts with me. And I made it home on the old clutch, but now I have all the parts sitting there. I gotta split the case, or not split the case, take the side cover off now and go ahead and replace the clutch. And I'm gonna do a couple other things too, with new oil pump and heavier clutch springs and some other things I gotta do. And we did full service on all the bikes when we got home. Took the side covers off, did the oil spinners with all the bikes. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the architecture of the Honda engines, but they used a centrifugal spinner as the oil filter on the early bikes, and then the later ones they went to an actual filter. But all the ones
Just like the 250 Janus uses something very similar.
okay, so that's pretty easy service. So you take it off and clean it out. And,
Chains.
oh, and chain. Yeah, that's the only other thing we had a mechanical issue with was the chains on the monkeys specifically, because the wheels are so small. You got a 12-inch wheel. I don't know what the circumference of that wheel is, but how many revolutions per mile it's making. But chains were wearing out and tires were wearing out on the monkeys.
Wow. Huh.
The rear tires, of course, wear out faster than the front because that's where the load's carried. And
Did you get the whole way with a single tire, or did you have to replace any?
We did make it all the way. We did not make it all the way on the chains. So
Yeah.
we were carrying some spares, and we ended up putting them on because towards like day 7, we were adjusting the chains twice a day. So they were properly lubed, they were properly tensioned, and again, they're small cogs, both front and rear, and the small tires, spinning a lot of RPMs per mile, and the chains just wore out. And some of the chains were the original Honda chains, which maybe weren't super top quality. And some of the chains were name brand, DID specifically, that they weren't X-ring or O-ring. They were just standard chains. But yeah, they didn't make the trip of 3,000 miles. So I had to do a little.
That is interesting. Those little tiny wheels.
Yeah, because the Hunter Cubs did not have the problem. And I got to say, the Hunter Cubs, we put new tires on those before we started. We used the Michelin City Grip tires, and those things performed spectacularly and were great. They were really super great wear out of those. Like most of the monkeys are all ready for new tires after the trip, but the Cubs, those tires, I'm going to say they're not even a third of the way worn down. I was really pleased with that wear. But then I did my records. The one monkey had Mitas tires on it, like a Mitas
Yep.
Scooter tire, and that tire performed much better than the stock monkey tire, which was a V-rubber, which a softer compound and a different style of tire altogether. But I can't say enough about that Mitas either. I figured out I had like 4,500 miles on that tire, and it's not completely done yet. So I guess that's not a bad run.
Not bad.
Tire on that,
yeah, not bad at all.
that little wheel. But you were starting to ask something?
Yeah, no, it sounds like an absolutely amazing adventure. 2 weeks to pack more experience into a trip across the country. If you were to do it again, anything you'd do differently?
They'd leave me home.
Like I said before, I would cut the days down. I'd allow myself 3 weeks to do it and do maybe 200 miles a day instead of 250 to 300 miles a day. Other than that, you can't control the weather. You can't control traffic. I do always like traveling in September and October because crowds are lighter.
Yeah.
I think I would do it at the same time of the year.
Same part of the country? Would you the southwest or
I'd be okay with going anywhere, frankly. I've been to 49 states on my motorcycle, so I've been a little bit at every place, and this route was pretty good. We saw everything from the desert Southwest to the plains to even like Missouri. Missouri
Hills
is
of Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri is a nice state to ride in. You're going up and down, up and down. The Ozark Mountains aren't spectacular, but they make for spectacular riding because they're curvy roads and there's constant either ascents or descents, and it makes for a great ride. So I don't think I would change too much. I think I would do it in the same vein, if not the exact same route. But I would certainly take another big bike trip on the monkey. I mean, another big trip on the little bikes.
Yeah.
Not afraid of it whatsoever.
And earlier we had done the Lake Erie Circle Tour. Pete, Jeff, and I did that from Cleveland west up through Detroit, across into Canada, and then back east toward the bridge, and then into Buffalo, and then back to Cleveland. So we took 3 days to do that, just to kind of test out the bikes. And
yeah, that was kind of our warm-up trip for this trip to see, like, do we really want to put this kind of time in per day on monkeys? But,
And would you recommend the motel stops, or would you consider camping?
I would not consider camping.
I'm not a camper, so
I've done plenty of camping, but that's an hour of setup every day, and it's an hour breaking down every evening. And if you get into any kind of weather, then it can be kind of miserable. You ride in the rain all day, and then you got to set up camp in the rain. That's can be not fun. And then you got to carry all that stuff too. And on the little bikes, that becomes spaces at a premium. And it really, the kind of places we were staying at were pretty inexpensive, and you split the room 2, sometimes 3 ways, depending on what they have available. It's really not any more expensive to stay in a hotel, and it's certainly
and you get to kind of meet people too a little more than if you're camping. You're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
that's an advantage.
Yeah.
Well, the other bonus too is every morning you can take a shower.
Yeah,
There's somebody to be said for that. I'll say that for sure.
Yeah.
So
it's like you start every day fresh and dry. You just put your coat on and get on your bike and you go, versus like having to pack up all that wet stuff. So yeah, I would definitely. There's time for camping, but a trip like this is not time for camping. Camping for me is like a solo thing, or maybe with one other person. Trying to get 6 guys to camp together, it just it would overcomplicate the issue, I think.
Maybe for a weekend, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Well, I think we're getting close to. We're usually an hour long. This has been fantastic. I'm just going to cover a couple of last comments. Simtex says, just wondering how the cycle crate is coming soonish. They look pretty sweet. Anyone have one? Thoughts? The cycle crate is a guy over in Ohio who's making these gorgeous little wooden crates for the back of your Janus. It has his logo on it, and he's making them for us with the Janus logo. I know that the talk in the shop has been we're getting different covers made. I don't have a lead time on those, but they look really cool. Grant said, Kurt is working on them now. He's a quick worker. The brand with Janus logo should be done by the end of week, and he may be done with several crates by then. So we're working on it. Mark Gallistel says, by the looks of the site, the name of the solar farm is Amazon Solar Panel Farm, the Agua Caliente Solar Project in Yuma County, Arizona. Well,
fantastic.
Look it up. Simtech says, I saw the cycle crate at the Barber Vintage Festival and was impressed with the build quality. The dovetail mounting system seemed solid and easy to use. I'll probably get one eventually. John says, I haven't seen the current build segment for a while. Will you be bringing that back? Yes, whenever I have time to figure out what builds have been done that week, I will get back to it. It's NGL, this is the life I'd want to live. Says Confed Simtech has one on order. Looks way better than a milk crate, and I'm going to put something there anyway. All right. And guys, how was the wind? Was it ever bad enough to stop?
Not bad enough to stop. I can tell you when I was on a bicycle trip, I was in Winslow, Arizona one time, and we camped on the west side of Winslow. We were heading east, and we rode through Winslow and stopped. The wind was so bad, we went like 5 miles that day. We're like, I'm going to wait. So I was afraid of that, and it didn't happen this time. But there was a couple times where the headwinds were pretty bad.
In Kansas.
Was it Kansas? Yeah. I don't remember it. Yeah. But Yeah, there was a couple times when headwinds were bad, and we even said, "Boy, if this was a tailwind right now, we'd be holding like 65." So
Yeah. Right.
general rule is like a bicycle guy would travel west to east because the prevailing winds come from the west. So we kind of were hoping that was going to play out for us too. And I think the couple times we might have had a slight tailwind, but the only serious wind we had was the headwind in Kansas the one day.
Well, cool. Well,
It
cool.
slowed us down.
Well, yeah, it's been a week for me of I get to talk to you all about your cross country trip, and then we had a guy stop in. I've been emailing him for a year now, and he was riding. He just stopped in riding, following the route of George Wyman, whose route I followed. First guy to ride cross country. He's doing it on an electric bicycle, averaging about 100 miles a day, and
Wow.
he stopped in and said hello. He has 2 batteries, one that he rides with and one strapped to the back. And between the 2 batteries, he can usually get about 100 miles. But I'll be posting some pictures of him sometime soon. But it's neat. There's his history was that in the 70s he skateboarded across the U.S.
Yeah, cool.
So there's many ways to roll across the country.
Well, that's the inappropriate tool for the job, and that makes
That's exactly.
You have to have an adventure at that point. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
it'd be cool.
Absolutely, and that's what it's all about. So that's what we try and do here at Janus.
Richard, one last thing I want to tell you. I've been getting a lot of compliments on my ducktail fenders.
Oh, good, great. Yeah, Chris came in a month or so ago and swapped out his fenders for the ducktails with Pete. Yeah.
Yep.
So, well, it's been such a pleasure to talk with you all. Thank you for sharing your time and experiences. Chris, could you text me a link to GPS Kevin, and I'll put it in the description
Sure.
if anybody wants to look that up, and we'll go from there.
Cool. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. We didn't cover any of the injury photographs, but maybe that's for everybody's benefit. You got a glimpse.
Plausible deniability.
I'll just give you one quick thing of parting shot here. So my
Go
brother,
for it.
we ride 2,800 miles, let's just say, from San Diego back to the Cleveland area. 5 miles from his house, lapse of concentration or whatever, he goes down at like 2 miles an hour and twists his foot backwards 180 degrees.
Oh.
A week later, he had reconstructive surgery on his ankle and
Broke his shin.
and broke one of his bones in his shin, on his tib or his fib or whatever. But yeah, so he's walking around in a air cast right now, or a walking boot or something. But he'll be back in the saddle here before we know it. He's got all winter to recover now. We're winding down the riding season here in Cleveland.
They always say the accidents happen close to home, right? So
That's why I
there
moved.
you go.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
that was a bit of shit luck.
Yep. Well, thank you both again. The last thing I have to say, and I meant to say this earlier, but I have a secret. This is really to test people. I was supposed to say this a lot earlier, our sales team, but there's a secret code that I'm giving out for 15% off of inventory builds, trick or treat. So if you're watching this, you're the only ones that got it. And I was supposed to say that at the beginning of the episode, but there you go. We'll end it on that note. Pete and Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Can't wait to hear about your next adventure.
All right.
Be sure to broadcast it. Take
Good.
care.
Thanks for having us.
All right, thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.